Welcome, fight fans, to another episode of Combative Numbers. What a week it's been in the world of MMA, and today we're going to bring you all the news. But the big news today is the main event at UFC 196 just got changed. And of course, I'm talking about Conor McGregor and Rafael Dos Anjos. That was the original main event. Rafael Dos Anjos suffered a broken foot, is out of the fight, and now we have challenger Nate Diaz jumping in to take that slot. But the big news about this fight is that it's not going to be at featherweight. It's not even going to be at lightweight. It's going to be at welterweight. So now Conor McGregor is jumping up to welterweight to take on Nate Diaz because Rafael Dos Anjos got injured. Big Poppa, always my guest here. Talk to me a little bit about this fight. How do you see this fight?
That's an easy victory for the Notorious One. Nate Diaz has no business being in that octagon with a giant like McGregor. I know he called him out somewhere in Florida after one of his events. I mean, even if you just look at the interview he did at the post-conference, his face was all beat up. He had no business calling out a monster the size of McGregor. I mean, in his last 16 fights, 8 losses. Please, no disrespect to him as a fighter. You know, he's a journeyman, but you know, to fight a McGregor, you should not be allowed to fight a McGregor with half of your last 16 fights losses. And then what's he can't stand up with him. He's only had 4 KOs out of his 18 victories. So there's so much that needs to be said about that. But this is, I mean, and he's not even a welterweight. Yeah, they're fighting at the welterweight class, but he's really a number 6 ranked lightweight. So he's not the top of the tier. He's not a real welterweight. He's gonna get beat. You want to see a beatdown? I mean, you're gonna see a Diaz brother get shut down really bad and embarrassed.
Well, as you can see, man, the world of MMA just got turned upside down because of this main event. But we're going to get, to that later on in another episode of Combative Numbers. We're going to bring you all the details, all the stats like Big Poppa knows how to do. We're going to break down that fight all the way down to the T and really break it down and, pretty much tell you what you can expect for that main event. But in this episode, we want to talk about the co-main event of UFC 196, which is a very interesting fight in the women's bantamweight division. Of course, I'm talking about Holly Holmes and Miesha Tate. A very interesting fight, very interesting styles between the two women. But the big news, of course, is Holly Holmes, who shocked the MMA world back in November when she defeated Ronda Rousey in Australia with that devastating head kick, knocked her out, and from one day to another, Holly Holmes became an MMA sensation. So, Big Poppa, let's talk a little bit about this co-main event for UFC 196. Of course, you got Miesha Tate, Holly Holmes, both women coming from completely different backgrounds. One was a boxer, one's an MMA. Now, Holly Holmes, obviously MMA and boxer. But talk to me a little bit about their vitals and the tell of the tape. How do they stand up with each other?
Well, that's very true. The statement you said about her coming out of nowhere, shocking the world. She became what she got KO of the year. She got upset of the year, newcomer of the year, female fighter of the year. I mean, a lot was thrown at her all at once. It used to be Holly who, and now it's Holly, the her preacher's daughter, Holmes. Everybody knows Holly Holm now. She became instantly a name, in the world. Prior to that fight, you didn't even know who she was, but after that fight, in other words, she became somebody. This is the big question. Before I get into their stats, when a lot of people keep asking me, you called this fight, you knew this fight was going to go down the way. Yes, I've always said that when a fighter learns how to box, not strike, box, I go, that's going to cause a lot of trouble. And I saw Ronda Rousey, and you got to remember the women's this women's MMA fighting is all brand new. As far as where it's mainstreamed via Fox and all that. So it's all relatively new. Do we yet have the best women fighter athletes out there? No, not yet. It's in its infancy. So Ronda Rousey came in, stormed in, but right away I picked up the flaws. I go, a boxer will knock her out or take her out. That's exactly what happened. So here comes Holly Holm with great credentials, boxing credentials, a legit boxer. Was I surprised with that? Not at all. As a matter of fact, I predicted it. So anyways, as we know, her dad's a the father. He's a preacher of a Church of Christ, and so he's a real preacher. Her dad. So she right off the bat, she has his blessing. So I don't know if that plays a major factor here, but anyways, first thing is noticeable a little their age. Miesha's 29 years old. Holly Holm's 34 years old. 5 year difference. To me, that just means maturity in the case of Holly Holm. Holly Holm from New Mexico, and that they have a lot of fighters there coming out of there. She's at the famous school, Team Jackson, Winkle John. As you know, Miesha is with Team Couture. Wow, 2 great camps. So on that one, I wouldn't know which way to weigh in, one way or the other. They're great schools. So they can't be at better schools, in other words. But let's look at their heights. There's a height difference. Holly Holm's 5'8", Miesha 5'6". So there's a 2-inch disparity there. What do they bring? The reach. Holly Holm 69. Miesha 66.5, so there's about a 2.5-inch reach there. So right off the bat, Holly Holm's a big girl. At the recent MMA event awards that happened here in Las Vegas, our host and some people that were shooting her interview, great interview by the way, noticed, they said, wow, she's a big girl. They go, she's an athletic big girl. She's no joke. So in other words, she's imposing. Physically, she's imposing. So Miesha Tate is going to see that when she steps in the ring and goes face to face with her. She's going to know, I'm fighting a bad girl, so to speak. So those are as far as their stats, that's what I'm looking at. Holly Holm, a bigger girl. Now here's something of note that's interesting, that I break down everything and I look at all the little angles and everything. I'm always looking for details, like what could make the difference in this fight. At first I wasn't so interested in this fight when you first mentioned it to me, and I was like, well, I'm not a big fan of women's. I see them and I have yet to sit there and watch a whole women's fight. It just doesn't do it for me. But when I saw when you asked me to research this and I saw the styles, it's kind of like a McGregor versus Dos Anjos fight, a stand-up versus a ground. And I'm like, wow, this could actually become a good fight. See, my big question, I'm gonna sidetrack really quickly. The thing that's in my mind that as I mentioned before in previous segments and previous shows we've done, the mind is so important, so crucial. When I've been with champions before, I can always tell when they're going to deviate, when they start lagging, when they stop doing their training how they were, when they start with the girl stuff, when they start drinking, or you can always tell when they're going off the. You can always tell when they're going off the road, and they're 1 or 2 fights away from a loss, and I haven't missed yet. When I could see it coming. What I wonder is, what has all this fame and stardom done for Holly? She seems like a great woman, a great person. She's married. She seems like she's got it together. Maybe this hasn't rattled her at all. I don't know her personally, so I can't vouch for her one way or the other. But my only question is, she got fame like this. In a snap of a finger, you knocked out the deadliest, fiercest female fighter in the world. And you took her out. You didn't win by decision. You took her out. Basically, you debunked her and you took her seat to a name that she's doing movies now. In other words, they say to be the man you got to beat the man. Well, to be the woman you got to beat the woman. She beat the woman. So I wonder her mindset. And when we go along a little more, I'm going to talk about her records and her recent fights and what I think about what might happen, which could be a major factor. So I don't know what Holly Holm we're going to get. We're going to get the new confident woman that's like, I just took out the queen. I'm the queen, and I'm going to take you out. Or do you still play it safe and just make sure you win and you get the W? And because you're going to lose so much if you lose. She's in a predicament, because if she doesn't win convincingly, you're like, oh, wow, Ronda's going to beat you the next time. But if she puts this girl away, that everybody's like, wow, Ronda better take more time off because this girl's deadly. So I wonder, my excitement in watching this fight is, which Holly Holm are we going to get? What has all this fame and popularity done for her, in favor or against her? That's my question. What do you think about that?
Well, it's definitely going to be a very interesting fight. And, you said something very clear because, it all depends on how she takes out Miesha Tate. If she can take her out, obviously Miesha Tate losing to Ronda Rousey 2 times already. So, that's going to be very interesting to see how Holly Holmes is going to deal with the opponent, or as we would call her, the arch nemesis of Ronda Rousey, because we know that Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey don't like each other at all. And Ronda Rousey did easy work of Miesha Tate. So it's going to be interesting to see how Holly Holmes really handles Miesha Tate. But you did say something very interesting that, you were talking about the MMA awards and how Holly Holmes looked very big and imposing, and that's very true. But Holly Holmes comes from 2 different sports. Obviously, she started her career in boxing, and then transferred over to MMA, and she was a champion in boxing. It wasn't like she was just a boxer. She became champion in boxing and then came over to MMA, and obviously now she's the women's UFC Bantamweight champion. So Holly Holmes can be said that she is a true athlete, and it's something to say about her that she can transition that way from boxing to MMA. And you've always said, Big Poppa, that if you can get a fighter in MMA that can box, that they're deadly, because as you know, we have a lot of strikers in MMA, but we don't have many boxers in MMA. And it seems that Holly Holmes just proved what a lot of people have been asking for so many years: what would happen when a true boxer got into the octagon against an MMA fighter? And we saw what happened, come in last November when she knocked out Ronda Rousey. Yes, it was a head kick, but still her boxing led up to that head kick. So very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about that, Big Poppa. Boxing and MMA. Tell us a little bit about Holmes' boxing background and her MMA.
Well, she definitely has pedigree. Holly Holm has impressive boxing statistics and pedigree, as I said. She has 33 wins, 9 by KO. She only has 2 losses, both by KO, and she has 3 draws. But it's what she's done, the maturity, the way she's developed as a fighter, as a boxer, not only a striker, a boxer, precision. To have that, hitting the right place at the right time. She's a multiple time world champion. She's defended her title 18 times in 3 weight classes. She's a 2-time Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year, which is no easy feat. She was a welter champ for the WBA, WBC, IBF. In other words, she's the real deal as a boxer. Now she stepped into the octagon and raised hell. she set a new bar. You better know how to box if you're going to step into the ring with her. She doesn't have much of a kickboxing record, but she did go into there. Was it the years like 2002 to 2003? She had 2 wins, both by KO, 1 loss by KO. So in other words, when she goes in there, she goes a throwdown. There's no doubt about that. You mentioned you wanted to know a little about her MMA record too?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the MMA record.
She has 10 wins, 7 by KO. That's a very, very high rate. Only 3 decisions, no losses. So she's perfect in the MMA world. UFC record. Now, how is she done in the big leagues? That's what really matters. The records really never impressed me until you've done it in the UFC, because that's the big dog. Those are the big leagues. She has a 3-0 record. As you know, she KO'd Rousey with the head kick / punches. Her other victory was a unanimous decision over Renaud. And then Pennington, a split decision. So that's what I was going back. I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about I have something to say about which Holly Holm's going to show up. I'm thinking that those decisions are the 2 out of the 3 victories in the UFC. 2 of those decisions were decisions, unanimous and a split. Split, I don't like to hear a split. That means it was getting close. Unanimous decision, okay, but still was a decision. The Rousey one was like clear cut. KO, I'm the winner. When there's decisions, it always leaves a lot of room where you could go all ways. But this is what I think. I'm thinking, those decisions were based on 3 rounds. This is a championship fight. This is 5 rounds. So I'm like, okay, this is good for Holly, because Holly, in boxing, you go longer than that. So I think she's going to be good. I think the 5 rounds favors her, as opposed to 3 rounds, 5 rounds. I think 5 rounds gives her more than enough time, especially with the great footwork. I think it gives her more than enough time to combat anything that Miesha Tate could possibly throw at her.
So what about Miesha Tate? We have Miesha Tate. Obviously she's a veteran in MMA. She's fought some big fights. Obviously could never get the over the hump against Ronda Rousey, but definitely one of the up and coming fighters, and definitely on the top of the division as well. How does Miesha Tate come in, and how does her record parallel to Holly Holmes?
Well, it's a little mixed bag of tricks there. She has 17 wins, 3 by KO only. So what does that tell you? She's not knocking people out. So she's a ground person. Submissions, 6. Almost about 1/3 of her victories are via submission. So she's a submission girl. Lots of decisions, 8. So she'll grind it out or she'll submit you. But her game is not stand up at all. Losses, she's lost 5 times, which it's unlike Holly, undefeated in the MMA world. But of those losses, she's been knocked out twice, so she has been knocked out. She's been submitted twice, which I don't think Holly's gonna go to the ground with her. And she's had 1 decision. So yes, you can say it's a mixed bag of tricks. But what the number that stands out the most to me out of those 17 wins is the 6 submissions and 8 decisions. And of the losses, it was 2 KOs, 2 submissions, so it's kind of scattered. So, would I say she's an elite? No, because her numbers don't say that. They say she's a good fighter, but not elite.
Well, as you know, Big Poppa, a lot of it has to do with their camps, and a lot of it has to do where they're training. Like you mentioned earlier, they're both in very good camps. Holly Holm's training with Greg Jackson down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and obviously Miesha Tate here in Las Vegas at Extreme Couture. Both gyms, very well known, a lot of great fighters and a lot of great champions coming out of both of those gyms in UFC history. In your opinion, Big Poppa, do the camps matter, where these girls are training?
They do matter, but you can't go wrong with anything Couture. Couture was an amazing fighter. I mean, and he knew how to get the job done, no matter what size you were. So anything that has the Couture name on it, you're going to get quality. Same thing with Jackson. I mean, I know Jackson, great guy, wonderful guy, a great trainer. What they've done over at that school, a lot of great fighters have gone through there. So, they're at the top. Those are like they're at the top of the food chain when it comes to training camps. So 100% that they're both in good stables, so to speak. It's just you say how the training is going to be done, but the game plan is what it's going to come down to. And I don't know if Holly Holm goes on the ground, the game plan's not really going to matter. If Keisha ends up doing stand-up, the game plan's not going to matter. It's who imposes whose will on the other. But something I wanted to mention really quick, going back to Miesha Tate, was her UFC record. I didn't really touch on that as much as I wanted to. Two of her latest losses were by armbar, both to Rousey. You know what I mean? That's like, on the ground, Rousey got her. When she was at Strikeforce, she lost to Rousey. One of those fights was in Strikeforce. So it's something to note. But let me just really quickly look at her last fights in the UFC. Just to get a good idea of where Miesha's coming from. Like we know, Holly Holm's perfect record, 3-0 in UFC, knockout, and then 2 decisions prior to that. UFC record for Miesha. She had a unanimous decision over I. She had another decision, majority decision over McMahon. She had another unanimous decision against, I believe it was Nakai. She had another unanimous decision against Carmel. Then she had the loss, as you know, by submission armbar against Rousey. She had another loss against Zingano, TKO, knees and elbow. So, as you can see, she lost to the elite. She lost to Rousey. She lost to Zingano. Those are names. She lost to those. And the other ones, which were not really names, were decisions. Unanimous decision, majority decision, unanimous decision. It's like there's a lot of decisions going on. And then the losses were against the big names. So is she at the caliber of a Holly Holm? Well, Holly Holm, all we're basing her whole trajectory is on what she did that one night against Ronda Rousey. So that's why I'm wondering which Holly Holm is going to show up. Is it the badass that took out Ronda Rousey? Because if that's who shows up, Miesha's in trouble. Miesha actually has no chance. So the question is, which Holly's going to show up?
Well, that's a very interesting point, Big Poppa. And like you say, Holly Holmes right now is considered on the top of the of the food chain, and that could be a problem for Miesha Tate. But as we all know, styles make fights, and in their camps, obviously they're working on the game plan. They're working on trying to figure out the other fighter and where they can actually get the advantage on the other fighter, so they can get the victory. And obviously, that's all about that. That's what a fighter's camp is all about: getting in shape and coming up with that strategic game plan to make sure that you get the victory that nobody sees and the other opponent doesn't expect. So let's touch a little bit into this. How would you compare both of their styles, and be specific on this? What strengths do you see in both fighters?
That's a very good question, and only the people that are very, very versed in this sport ask me those kind of questions. The people that really know the intricacies of the sport, and when you're not only sizing them up as physical specimens, but also looking at video, looking at their fights, paying attention to the mathematics, to the science, to the numbers of it all. Which way do they go more, left or right? Do they like to stand up more? Do they like to go more to the ground? Are they fast? Are they slow? Are they powerful? Are they strong? How many times do they use their legs? How many times do they use their arms? There's a lot of things that go into analyzing a fighter. So I'm just saying that's a very good question. So allow me to elaborate on Holly Holm. The things I have seen in Holly Holm is, obviously, she brings kickboxing, and she brings definitely boxing. As I said, she has incredible pedigree in the boxing. She has an amazing straight left, which is going to be a major factor in this fight. She uses combos. Combos, as you know, you love boxing.
Yeah.
They cause a lot of trouble. She has really good lateral movement. She's a southpaw. There's going to be another factor in this fight. She's a southpaw. So she has good jabs. She does good with her opponents, having them against the cage, and she sets up her strikes. But the most troubling thing that's going to cause a lot of trouble for Miesha Tate is the footwork. Holly Holm is known for having great footwork. That comes because of boxing. And because of that footwork, you can evade trouble. You can get away from getting caught. In other words, when you have good footwork, you're like a Mayweather. It's hard to get to you. And if you can't catch her, you're in for a world of hurt, because she's just gonna jab you and hit you with her head, with her speed. And as long as she can move around with that footwork, it's a whole different ballgame.
Wow, that's a very good point, Big Poppa. And it's going to be very interesting to see about that, because like you say, man, a boxer coming into the world of MMA, it's night and day for the MMA fighters. MMA fighters are used to strikers. They're used to going around the octagon. They're used to, just a basic striker. But when you add a boxer that knows how to box and also knows how to move, that's deadly, because they know the angles, they know the combinations, they know exactly where to hit, how to hit, and the power punch that can put you out. So it's going to be very interesting. But go ahead.
Well, what makes it, I could already guess what you're going to ask me next. Tell me about Miesha Tate. What does her style bring to this fight?
Of course, we have to know both sides, and you broke down the boxing for Holly Holmes very well and how she transitioned to MMA. But you have some Miesha Tate fans out there, and let's give Miesha Tate credit. She's done great in the octagon. She can hold her own. And I think it's just fair to break her down, and let's see how she matches up against Holly Holmes.
You remind me of something something that I paid attention to. They're both great athletes. No one's going to take that away from them. Holly Holm was a former was into gymnastics, which means she's powerful. That's why she has such great muscle strength. She was a swimmer, so she has endurance too. She was into diving. But then you look at Miesha, she was known as sort of a tomboy. She wrestled in high school with the boys, and then went far with the girls. So this girl ain't scared. Ain't scared to scrap. She ain't scared to get down. If you're a girl and you're throwing down with the boys, you ain't scared. Yeah. So she does bring that to the table. But let me go a little deeper when it comes to the style of Miesha Tate. What does she really bring? Well, like I said, it's day and night. It's cold. It's hot. It's sun, moon. That's how different this fight. That's why this fight is so interesting. Who's going to impose their will? Holly Holm has to stay standing up. Now, what does Miesha Tate have to do? She has to take this baby to the ground. She's a ground gamer. She's solid in wrestling. Jiu-jitsu, she has a purple bra of jiu-jitsu, I believe. So that's good. But still, she's a ground person. Submission defense, good submission defense. She's a grappler. She has good arm defense, good arm bar defense, double leg takedowns. That's like one of her specialties that I've heard over and over. And I looked it up, and it's true. Good double leg takedowns. However, but Rousey didn't have too much trouble with that. So Rousey prepared. That shows you somebody on Ronda Rousey's team did a good job avoiding, being affected by that. But let's go back to Miesha. She does really good attacks from side control. Also, she looks for the body triangle. She holds her opponents really, really well in vulnerable positions. So, if she gets you on the ground, you could be in trouble. She likes the armbar. She likes the triangle choke. She likes submissions. She likes heel hooks, and she likes guillotines. So if you go into her realm, she has a trick or two up her sleeve. Could be very, very dangerous. So I just tell Holly Holm, use that footwork. Stay away from that. Don't go entangle with Miesha Tate in what she's strong in. You don't want to go there. I wouldn't.
Well, like we say, man, styles make fights, and this fight is definitely going to bring us two different styles. It's going to be very interesting to see which fighter imposes their will, and I really do think that the one fighter that imposes their will probably will get the victory. It'll be interesting to see if Miesha Tate can finally get that UFC title that she's been looking for so many years, or if Holly Holmes can show the world that it wasn't a fluke back in November, and that she really does belong in the UFC, and that she really is one of the best female fighters in the world. That is yet to be seen come March 5th. But let's finish it up here, Big Poppa. As you know, every fight has their key factors. In your opinion, what are the key factors to this fight, and what are the determining factors for these fight for both these ladies to get the victory?
I'm gonna serve you up with a nice, juicy fastball right down the plate. We're gonna go into your terrain. As you know, we've been in boxing forever. I've been at some of the greatest boxing matches. I love boxing. But I know that you love the sport of boxing. You enjoy it.
Yes, I
do. Study it. I always actually, as much as I've been in boxing way longer than you, yet when a big fight's coming up, I ask you, what do you see in their footwork? What do you see in their hand speed? What do you see in their strength? And you predict a lot of these fights right to the T. So I'm gonna need you for this one. I'm gonna need your assist. But let me set this up by concluding. I guess we're gonna conclude that what's gonna set up this key to the fight. That's probably the most asked question I'm getting right now by everybody around is, what's this fight gonna come down to? Tell us what's the key to this fight. It's not the camps, because they're gonna do their job. It's not. Is she gonna be the boxer? Is she gonna be the ground one? Those are all factors. But the key, we're gonna talk. The key is this. Because of Holly Holm's footwork, I don't think she's going to get in trouble as far as deciding to go to the ground with Miesha Tate. I don't think that's even going to get there. I think if Holly Holmes comes with confidence, which is the thing I'm depending on, that she believes that she's that good. Number one, that's the first thing. Now, if that happens, she uses her footwork just to move and groove and stay away and not get in trouble, not get in danger. So now remember, she has to go in there with confidence, which activates the footwork and feetwork, which, this is the key. It's going to be a stand-up fight. Holly Holm should dictate this fight. Be able to, with her feetwork, she should be able to, manage everything. The Miesha Tate is a righty. Holly Holm is a lefty. Holly Holm has great straight left, great jabs. She's going to be coming in. Miesha Tate's a righty. Miesha Tate uses a lot of, likes to use her left jabs, left hooks, right cross. Given that information, so once again, let me repeat. Miesha Tate is coming in with the left jab, left hook, and then right cross. How does Holly Holm neutralize that? Because if she does, it's an easy victory for Holly Holm.
Well, if Holly Holmes has good footwork, which you say she does, and she's the lefty, all she really has to do is do the jab, do the right jab. Because as Miesha Tate starts coming in, all you got to do is you jab her, and you keep her at a distance. That actually would frustrate Miesha Tate, because keeping her at a distance, she's not going to be able to throw that punch. She's not going to be able to reach her. If she does throw that punch, she's going to leave herself wide open, and with that jab, it sets up Holly Holmes to come in with a strong left, overhand left, or anything with the left hand, because that's her power punch. So it's a very dangerous thing for Miesha Tate. She has to be very careful with that, because Holly Holmes could be setting her up with a jab and setting her up for that knockout punch with the left hand, you know, so she has to be very careful on that. And on the other side of that, it allows Holly Holmes not to, one, get hit, but two, it keeps Miesha Tate frustrated, and it keeps her from actually going for the takedown with that footwork. So if Holly Holmes can actually dictate the fight and keep her at a distance with her jabs and her straights, then it's going to be a very long night for Miesha Tate.
Yeah, and also please comment now. Miesha Tate is known for having really good knees from the clinch. How does Holly Holm avoid that?
Keep moving around the octagon, but when you can, keep jabbing her, keep moving her. In other words, frustrate her, because as long as you're keeping distance and you're not closing the distance, which is what Miesha Tate's gonna want to do. Miesha Tate's gonna want to close the distance. Why? Because she's a ground fighter, she's a wrestler, so she's gonna want to go clinch her, you know, get the knees, get the elbows, and then take her down. So what Holly Holmes has to do is just keep the distance, you know, and keep it her fight. Keep jabbing, because eventually Miesha Tate's gonna open up. She's gonna open up, and it's gonna allow Holly Holmes to hit a strike, maybe a devastating left, or maybe even a kick. With the distance, you can kick. So it all depends on the way Miesha Tate's gonna bring or come into this fight. But if I'm Holly Holmes, knowing those two factors is, yeah, keep the distance and the footwork. That's gonna be her bread and butter for the night.
Wow, that's very well said. Very well said.
So yeah, so it's a very interesting fight, Big Poppa, as you know, and these two women, you know, are on the top of the food chain in the UFC. Now that Ronda Rousey, you know, has taken some time off after her loss against Holly Holmes, they are predicting that she's gonna come back later this year. We don't know exactly when. It was said that UFC 200 might be a place, but then it was later confirmed that it was too soon for Ronda Rousey, that she didn't want to come back at UFC 200,
and no longer undefeated. Ronda Rousey.
No, she's not undefeated. No, although they are saying that, you know, when she comes back, she's gonna be stronger than ever. We'll see about that, because like you always know, Big Poppa, with a knockout like that,
she doesn't have the pedigree of a boxer. That doesn't matter. She could come as strong as she wants. She'll outbox her every single time. It doesn't matter how strong she comes back.
And that's gonna be very interesting to see, because a lot of people want to see this fight. It's gonna be a great fight, and it's gonna be a fight that the whole world's gonna want to see when that rematch happens. But for now, we have Miesha Tate versus Holly Holmes on March 5th. So let's finish it up here, Big Poppa, because I know that's the number one question that everybody wants to know after all these facts and after all these statistics that you just gave us. Who wins? Who wins on March 5th? Is it Holly Holmes? Does she retain the title? Or do we have a new women's bantamweight title on champion on March 5th? What's your opinion?
As long as Holly Holm comes in with that confidence I spoke of and believes in her boxing and her ability, it should be an easy victory. You know, I would even say a KO. You know, her footwork is the key, as we keep saying, because the footwork is going to set up her strikes. You know, it's going to put her in a position to strike. And another thing that's a big factor, as I said before, is the 5 rounds. So she has 5 rounds to dance around, do her thing with her footwork, set up her strikes, use that jab you spoke of, frustrate her, and catch her. So I think if Holly Holm comes in with confidence and with that belief in herself that she is the real deal, I think this ends in a KO. And I don't think Miesha Tate ever gets to impose her will on the ground.
So there you have it, folks. Big Poppa predicts that Holly Holmes is going to win by KO as long as she imposes her will and keeps Miesha Tate at a distance and uses that jab. It's going to be a very interesting fight to see on March 5th. And as you know, with the main event changing from McGregor to Nate Diaz now, and Holly Holmes versus Miesha Tate, it's going to be an interesting event altogether for the UFC on March 5th. And we want to see how that's going to turn out. You know, we just don't know. The women's division at first started out kind of slow. Now it's kind of picking up again, especially with the big shocker with Ronda Rousey back in November. So there's something to see in the future, to see all these female fighters coming into the game. And like Big Poppa says, we haven't seen the best of the best yet when it comes to the female fighters. That's definitely going to be something to see in the future, because as we all know, there is going to be a fighter that's going to come in the female division that's just going to dominate and change the face of the female division for years to come. And I'm excited to see it, and I'm sure Big Poppa is excited to see it. So with that being said, Big Poppa, do you have anything else before we go off the air?
Yeah, I'm just excited to watch this fight. Actually, I'm looking forward to see what happens. You know, it's always fun to watch. I just hope they both bring their best game. And even if Miesha Tate ends up getting her and throwing her on the ground, I'm just going to say Holly Holm didn't have the confidence. I'm going to say she didn't believe in herself. And it'll be a big lapse. And it's going to be very hard for her to get back up to the status she's at now. So Holly Holm has to protect her kingdom, her throne, the position she's in at all costs. She has to bring it. She has to bring it again. Same way she did it against the champ. Same way she took out Rousey. She's got to do the same with Miesha Tate, because Miesha Tate ain't no Rousey. So this should be easier.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a very, very fun fight to watch. And as you know, probably the winner of this fight, I'm sure Ronda Rousey will be expecting to fight the winner of this fight later on down the year. Maybe after UFC 200. We don't know yet, but for sure, later on down the year, I'm sure Ronda Rousey will face the winner of this fight. So, for Big Poppa and myself, Lavish, it's been great. You know, please follow us on all our channels. Visit our website at themoxieempire.com. Visit us at all our social websites. You know, and if you have any questions or any fights that you want us to cover, please email us and we'll definitely cover them. Big Poppa does his research. He'll break it all down for you, all the numbers, all the stats, everything you need to know, and he'll give you his scientific opinion on who's gonna win. And 9 times out of 10, Big Poppa's usually right. So if you're a betting person, I would go with this show, watch it, and then go bet, because you're probably gonna get a winning ticket. So for that being said, thank you for joining us, and definitely stay tuned. In the next couple of days, we're going to break down not Rafael Dos Anjos, but actually Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor for the new main event at UFC 196, where Big Poppa is going to break down that fight down to the T and give you all the facts.
Just like McGregor is going to break down Nate Diaz.
Perfect. So we'll see you next time, folks.